Have you been offended enough by the left? Well, it's time to show them just how much. I'm Dr. Ray, and welcome to this week's OCA International Speaks. The left have offended the Jews. They have offended the Catholics. They have offended the Christians. And when Jesus is mentioned in rallies, you hear answers like this: you must be at the wrong place. Well, yes, they were. That means God was nowhere in that meeting to be seen or heard. Yahweh has inserted himself into this election. And it's not about the right versus the left or Republicans versus the Democrats. It's good versus evil. What happens in this election will affect us. America stands or falls on what happens in this next election. And for all the undecided, you will need to decide now: are you voting Tuesday, November 5th, 2024? And then when you do, stand for what you believe and vote that way. And I'm telling you, vote red. The church and the 41 million Christians are so religious in their thinking, they don't understand the significance of anything outside of the four walls, especially Yahweh's purpose for nations. Here are some talking points for the encouraging Christians who refuse to vote to reconsider your stand. Number one, voting is a form of stewardship. It's a biblical foundation. The Bible calls Christians to be good stewards of what God has entrusted to them. That includes not just personal resources, but also influence in society. You can see that in Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30, and Luke 12:48. Voting is one way you can steward the influence we've been given in a democratic society. It's our civic, second, or in the B, it's our civic responsibility. Romans 13, 1 through 7. You've heard many of things on that set of verses. Chapter number 2, influence for good in society. The Christian's duty is to seek justice. Micah 6:8 tells us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly before Yahweh. Refusing to vote can lead to policies that go against Christian values, potentially allowing injustice, corruption, and immorality to prevail unchecked. Voting is one way Christians can influence policies that protect the vulnerable, uphold human dignity, and promote justice. Jesus said this, that you're the light and salt. He said, salt of the earth and the light of the world. Matthew chapter 5, 13 through 16. The third way we impact is we impact our future generations. Legacy of faith is what we would call it. Proverbs 13:22 says, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. By voting for leaders who promote values that align with Christian teachings, we protect the future for the next generation. Policies on religious freedom, education, life, and family directly affect the kind of society our children will inherit. Long-term consequences will be seen depending on how we vote. Number 4, addressing common objectives. First of all, there's no perfect candidate. It's true that no candidate perfectly embodies all Christian values. You don't either. However, this doesn't mean we should refuse to vote. We should seek candidates whose policies most align with biblical principles, such as protecting life, promoting justice, and preserving religious freedom. Faith in God's sovereignty is what we must promote. Some Christians may argue that God is sovereign and his will is going to be done regardless of whether they vote. While God is indeed sovereign, he often works through human actions. Refusing to vote could hinder his work, whereas participating faithfully can be a way Yahweh uses us to accomplish his will. And then finally, 5, prayerful protection or participation. Voting with a prayerful heart encourages Christians to approach voting as an extension of their prayer life. They should pray for wisdom, discernment, and for Yahweh's guidance in selecting leaders who will promote righteousness and justice. Voting with a prayerful mindset aligns our civic duties with our faith. Now, since I've started on this last 7 weeks, if you had contacted 2 people and I contacted 2 people, and I'm hopeful that these videos have been going out to at least 2, we would have covered the earth by now, all 8 billion people. The results show us quickly how exponentially growth can escalate. So we want you to get out and vote. This next November 5th, which will be less than a week from the time that this goes out on the air, you have an opportunity to vote. There's early voting in a lot of places, so go out and get to vote. Tell your neighbors, vote. If they can't go out, then have them fill out their ballots and you take it in. Have them sign it, you take it in, and then you sign it at the bottom where you're taking it in for your neighbor. You can do that. That's legal. So go ahead. It's called ballot harvesting, which is legal as long as that they're alive and not in the grave. Well, I'm Dr. Ray, and I'll see you next week on OCA International Speaks.